Hello viewers from across the internet, I am Matt Video Productions and welcome back. Today's video is going to be very exciting. We're going to be comparing Dall-E 2, of course the famous text-to-image model, to Stable Diffusion, which I assume a lot of you will have heard of if you've watched this channel, because I've made a few videos regarding Stable Diffusion text-to-image AI in the past. But yes, Stable Diffusion is a newer text-to-image AI that we will be discussing in this video, and it is most definitely a strong competitor to Dall-E 2 for a variety of reasons. We're going to be doing an image-to-image comparison with identical prompts, so we will be able to sort of weed out a few of the strengths of each of those AIs with that comparison, but I've also got an informational comparison that compares some different capabilities of each one in terms of the technicals. Anyways, as you viewers know, I like to open up my videos with an interesting AI generation or piece of news of some sort, and today is actually both. This is not only a very interesting AI generation, but it's also a very interesting piece of AI news. So this tweet right here by Patrick Esser starts off with a little bit of Stable Diffusion news, which I guess I'll also cover in this video. Stable Diffusion text-to-image checkpoints are now available for researchers, so the full version of Stable Diffusion you can apply for if you're a researcher, but of course the full open source version of Stable Diffusion text-to-image will be available to the public on GitHub at some point in the near future, but the full version is now available to researchers at least who apply. And then the really main important part of this is soon TM coming to runway machine learning for text to video editing, which is absolutely crazy. A lot of people are worried this is going to put VFX artists completely out of business, and you're going to see why in a second. Let's take a look at this little clip they have here. So to best explain this, basically we're looking at a text prompt, and this is obviously a video that's already been captured on a camera, and well, I think you guys will get the basic gist of this video. So as we can see, a tennis court, then completely edited, tennis court on a sandy beach, and the whole ground is replaced. And if we watch further, you can change it so the background is just on the moon, and it tracks and follows perfectly, all with AI. So this is basically AI video editing. As you can see, it's switched over to Mars now. It's the same video of the tennis player. The shadow is still there on the surface of Mars, and it looks pretty perfect, although this video is a little bit not very high quality, I guess you could say. This is next to a forest in winter, so we can see that specific detail at the end of a forest track. And yeah, this is an enchanted forest. We could see glowing mushrooms in the background. Artifacts of an alien civilization, we can see those moving in the background as well, in the desert with mountains. So yeah, it just shows you basically the capabilities of the possibility to just fully edit backgrounds in with AI. So yeah, VFX artists are either going to lose their jobs or their lives are going to get a lot easier and will have better VFX. So yeah, guys, I would absolutely love to know what you guys think about this new technology down in the comments below. I think we could have a good discussion about it, but yeah, basically text to video editing is somehow already on its way, which is just absolutely mind-blowing stuff and mind-blowing technologies. So yes, everyone, getting into the next part of our video, first we're going to be doing a little quick informational comparison between Stable Diffusion and Dall-E 2. So as you can see, we have some different stats comparing these two text-to-image AI generators, and Stable Diffusion, which is created by Stability AI, here is on the left-hand side, and Dall-E 2, of course, made by OpenAI, is on the right-hand side. So first, Stable Diffusion has been trained on 5 billion plus images. We don't have an exact number, but we know it's more than 5 billion images, and this is known as the Lion 5B dataset, which also has captions, of course, and some aesthetics ratings associated with it. I'm not super well informed on all of that, but it seems to be a pretty good dataset, pretty large dataset. And with Dall-E 2, we don't exactly know how many images it was trained on, but some reports have said it's hundreds of millions of images. I've heard the number 600 million images floating around, but we don't exactly know the specific details on that. So yeah, both of them are very large caption and image datasets that they are trained on, but it seems at least that Stable Diffusion actually is trained on more billions of images, and apparently this number is going to increase with a new 42 billion image dataset, but don't quote me on that. That's just something, a little rumor I heard floating around the Discord server. So in terms of parameters per model, Stable Diffusion is looking a little bit over 800 million parameters. This number could change though, as Stable Diffusion is still in development. So yeah, I want to make that very clear in this video. All of this stuff, I mean, this could change in the future, right? Because both of these are definitely still in development. Things can change, but this is the information that we have at this moment in time. Anyways, 800 million parameters for Stable Diffusion, so that's quite a large model. Midjourney is around 4.5 million parameters. For a comparison, and Dall-E 2 though is quite a lot bigger at a whopping 3.5 billion parameters, which is quite a large model, but parameters aren't everything, as we can clearly tell from other models such as Midjourney. Anyways, Stable Diffusion will be able to actually be run on your own GPU at home, on your own system, of course, because it will be open source. And they say right now that Stable Diffusion in its current state will run on your own home GPU under 10 gigabytes of VRAM, which is actually very good news. So that means like a lot of mid-ranged graphics card, definitely high-ranged graphics cards will be able to run Stable Diffusion at home and apparently generate images on just seconds. It will be able to generate them. And of course, Dall-E 2, you can't run Dall-E 2 at all on your own graphics card at home with your own software. It is not announced yet, and I don't think it'll ever be a feature for Dall-E 2, so you won't be able to run it at home on any VRAM. Of course, Stable Diffusion will be open source. Dall-E 2 is not open source at the moment, and I don't think it ever will be open source, but basically open source means that anyone will be able to download Stable Diffusion pretty soon, and they can mess with it. They can make an app with it for Android and iOS. They could make your own program you could download at home and run on your own machine with it, although I think, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that Stability AI is going to make a version you can download. But yeah, open source means quite a lot of possibilities. Anyone can download and modify Stable Diffusion and create all kinds of whatever they want with it. And of course, nothing with Dall-E 2 of that sort. It's completely closed off. OpenAI has full control. So in terms of how much they cost, Stable Diffusion will be free if you want to run it on your own machine at home, and it will cost some sort of money to run it on the servers that Stability AI will have set up for it. So there's going to be a web app for Stable Diffusion that's coming out sometime in the future, and it will eventually cost money to be able to use that. And I've heard the number $5 a month for unlimited access floating around, which would be absolutely incredible. $5 a month really is nothing for full unlimited access to something like this. But again, please do not quote me on that. Don't get me in trouble for that number. That's just a rumor that I heard floating around. And of course, we know how much Dall-E 2 costs right at the moment. This could change though in the future. OpenAI said that they might change their prices in the future. At the moment, it's about 13 cents per prompt, but you will have to spend a minimum of at least $15 for 115 prompts. That is 4 images per prompt. Right now, the people that do have access to Stable Diffusion and that specific Discord server of about 15,000 beta testers have just unlimited prompts, and they can generate unlimited variations of each image. So yeah, that's just the prompts down there. Right now, it's unlimited prompts, and apparently when you do get access to the web app, it will be unlimited prompts, and this right now again is 115 prompts for $15 with Dall-E 2. And in terms of restrictions here for this, Stable Diffusion has very, very low restrictions. Really, the only restriction right now in the beta testing, you can not generate anything NSFW, so no nudity, no like extreme crazy gore, nothing, no horrible obscene stuff. And with Dall-E 2, of course, if you guys have been keeping track of that at all, the restrictions are very high in Dall-E 2. There's certain words that are banned that just don't make sense to be banned, such as the word shot, S-H-O-T. So, you know, this would be in reference to like being shot on a camera, like a photo being shot, right? That word is completely banned in Dall-E 2, and there's a lot of words that are banned on Dall-E 2. I bet the word gore itself is banned on Dall-E 2. So yeah, there's very high restrictions with Dall-E 2. And basically, they say everything needs to be G-rated, so no celebrities, you can't make anything like that. You can try to generate copyrighted stuff, but they've tried to remove all copyrighted material from the dataset for Dall-E 2, so yeah, Dall-E 2 has very, very high restrictions, and of course it makes sense why they want high restrictions. They want to keep bad people away from this technology, using it for bad things. So yeah, there's a whole debate on what types of restrictions that these AIs need to have, and I'm sure you guys can discuss that down in the comments below, but you know, Stable Diffusion has very low restrictions, and Dall-E 2 has very high restrictions. That's the best way to put it. And of course, you actually will be able to generate not safe for work stuff on your own GPU when it fully releases, and you can download and run it on your own graphics card at home. So you can generate basically whatever you want on your own graphics card at home with Stable Diffusion, because it will be fully open source software. And of course, no not safe for work stuff is allowed at all with Dall-E 2. For generation time here, with Stable Diffusion, we're looking at around a 5-second generation time. It's very snappy and very quick. That's on the web app for now, at least, and apparently it's also going to be around this time when you run it on your own GPU at home. Maybe, I mean, it's going to depend on what kind of graphics card you have in your system, right? And right now, Dall-E 2 generates anywhere from 10 seconds-ish, usually, maybe 15 seconds if the servers are a little overloaded, but yeah, both of them are actually very quick, I have to say. I don't really have complaints with the generation time for either, but Stable Diffusion's snappy right now, I do have to say. So, in terms of in-painting, apparently Stable Diffusion is going to be getting an in-painting update at some point soon, where you can actually do in-painting. I imagine that will be available in the web app. And you'll also be able to do outpainting. So basically that means you can shrink the image down and then generate around the image. If you guys don't know what inpainting is, basically it's like you can draw on the image and then have the AI fill in whatever you erased in the image. It's sort of a rough explanation of it. But of course, Dall-E 2 right now does have inpainting. It is a feature. And with Stable Diffusion, we also are able to do aspect ratios, so you can generate in different resolutions and aspect ratios. So you actually can go up to 1024 by 1024 resolution with Stable Diffusion. Of course, that's a part of the different aspect ratios that are available, but there's no saying for certain that you will be able to run this model at home on your own GPU under 10 gigabytes of VRAM at this crazy high resolution. Basically, like the basic setting for Stable Diffusion right now on the server is 512 by 512. And of course, with Dall-E 2, we have no aspect ratio option. You get a 1:1 square aspect ratio only for Dall-E 2, and all images are generated in 1024 by 1024. You have no say in that. Another thing that I'd like to note, there are a lot of free AI upscalers that are really good. So if you do generate images in 512 by 512 with Stable Diffusion, you can always just take that image and then immediately put it into an AI upscaler and make that image larger. So getting into the final little comparison, there actually is a larger model of Stable Diffusion that has been announced and is coming in the future, so we are going to be getting an even better, more complicated model in the future. We don't really know that much about it, but we know it's going to run hopefully under 16 gigabytes of VRAM, something like that. But yeah, basically it's going to be a larger, better Stable Diffusion model, and as of right now, there's no successor or bigger model for Dall-E 2 announced yet. We just have Dall-E 2 at the moment, although we can, you know, assume that OpenAI is going to make something that's a little bit more expanded upon in the future. And of course, Stable Diffusion is going to be public very shortly. They're moving at a very rapid rate week by week, and I imagine that Stable Diffusion is going to be public for everyone very, very soon. And with Dall-E 2, you know, of course, they do want to go public, but we don't know when it's going to be public, and I imagine that Stable Diffusion is going to be public sooner than Dall-E 2, but, you know, of course, that's just taken with a grain of salt. We don't really know anything for sure. Anyways, that is that for this little informational comparison. Now we'll move on to the direct image versus image comparison. Now, some of you guys might find this a little upsetting, but I actually am going to go ahead and completely remove my face cam for this demonstration, so you guys can really get the full look and the full view of these images. So yeah, say goodbye to my gorgeous face. It's actually a little bit relaxing to not be on camera for once. So folks, getting into this little comparison here, on the left-hand side here we have Stable Diffusion, and on the right-hand side here we have Dall-E 2. And for each prompt, I have generated 4 images, or 4 variations. Of course, that's the max you can do with Dall-E 2, and with Stable Diffusion you can do more, but I just set it to 4 for Stable Diffusion, I guess to keep it fair. So for this first comparison, this prompt was 3D Octane Render Cute Chibi Lemon lemon character sipping on a delicious Caribbean drink, wearing sunglasses, relaxing on a tropical beach at sunrise. So as you can see, Stable Diffusion did a decent job so far with this first image. We definitely can see the body of the lemon. Very good sunglasses, I have to say. Those are rendered well. He's definitely on a beach. Now, I wouldn't exactly consider this at sunrise. There's nothing to really say that in specific, but, you know, we can see the ocean in the background, some maybe tropical plants, and he's definitely sipping a drink and holding it. And it's definitely 3D render. Now with Dall-E 2, I think this one is a little bit better just for this image in specific. We've definitely got the sunrise there in the background. He's definitely sipping on a delicious drink. Full lemon character, sunglasses on the beach. I think it got the prompt better in general, but it's actually very close. Now, if we start to flip through and check out a few of these images, we can see this variation's actually a little bit better. We've got a better lemon character, I think, as a whole. It's a little bit more coherent, definitely on the beach there, holding a drink. This one also is better from Dall-E 2, I'd like to mention. Definitely holding the drink there. Full lemon character, sunglasses, it's more coherent, sunrise. So yeah, we can look at a few different of these. This lemon character is a little bit more weird, a little bit mishmashed AI down there. Dall-E 2 is a little bit more coherent with this prompt in general. I think Dall-E 2 edges Stable Diffusion out just a little bit with these prompts. We've got some stylized sunglasses here, a nice sunrise in the background, nice beach. But I like the palm trees in this one for sure. This is also very nice. And in here, Stable Diffusion got a little bit confused and made the lemon character a drink himself, but I actually really like the way he is stylized in this. And then this is actually a much worse Dall-E 2 generation here, I think. It's a little bit less coherent, a little bit more mishmashy, and it's a little bit like swirled around and messed up. But, you know, definitely a lemon character, sunglasses, holding a drink at the end of the day. All in all, though, I think both AIs do a decent job with this prompt here. Definitely, I think these are the two top AIs that people can access right now, Stable Diffusion and Dall-E 2. I think Dall-E 2 wins, though, for this prompt. Personally, it just gets the prompt a little bit closer, I think. Although Stable Diffusion does a very, very good job. So this next caption is, in this photo we see two lemon characters engaged in a heated discussion. The angle of this photo is from above, and we can see the intense expressions on their faces. The lighting is harsh and creates strong shadows, giving the photo a sinister feel. So this prompt actually was fully generated by AI, which is really interesting. The AI that generated the prompt was GPT-3 by OpenAI, so yeah, this was a pretty cool one just because of that. But yeah, as we could see, the two comparisons here, Dall-E 2 got the two lemon characters correct for this first generation image. Stable Diffusion, I mean, we could definitely see some lemon aspects of this guy, and they're both characters, but this person's not lemon. There's definitely the harsh lighting and the dramatic angle and all of that. But I think Dall-E 2 won in this image at least, but we can look at a few others, and this one is a little bit more interesting. I think these are definitely two lemon characters. I think pretty much every aspect of the prompt is here with Stable Diffusion. Here's the second image for Dall-E 2, very similar to the first one. All of these Dall-E 2 images are actually very, very similar, just photos of lemon characters arguing. And here's another one, definitely a little bit more cut off here with Stable Diffusion. More lemon characters here with Stable Diffusion, but I honestly think that Dall-E 2 also wins with this prompt. It's just a little bit more accurate, the coherency is there, although I gotta say Stable Diffusion did pick up on the character aspect of it a little bit better. Dall-E 2 just went full photography here, very just true to like actual photos of lemons, and you know, Stable Diffusion picked up on the character aspect a little bit better for sure. So yeah, I mean, honestly though, I think the coherency of Dall-E 2 here definitely wins. Although, you know, you could never generate any of these Dall-E 2 images for free on your own machine. So the next prompt in our list here is a ginger cat with a white chest and paws, yawning and stretching on a windowsill. So this is actually a pretty specific action here from the cat. And of course, Stable Diffusion here on the left definitely got a ginger cat. And I gotta say, the ginger cat is pretty coherent here. This is a nice generation, but he isn't really yawning or stretching in this image, where with Dall-E 2, we can definitely see some yawning and stretching going on. And of course, it is definitely a ginger cat, although I have to say, not as ginger as Stable Diffusion's cat, as you can see with the high vibrance. So for our next image pair here, we can see with Stable Diffusion, this cat's arm is definitely broken. Maybe this is trying to signify that he's stretching of some sort, but again, you know, we just get the yawning and the stretching a little bit better with Dall-E 2 in this case. It just gets it a little bit better, although the face is a little bit mishmashed. I mean, we see a mishmashed face in actually both of these generations, but again, I think Dall-E 2 just does a little bit of a better job with this one in general. Moving on to the third image here, we definitely see this ginger cat stretching a little bit more with Stable Diffusion, which is a little bit more impressive, but again, we also see that with Dall-E 2. Again, it's a ginger cat. Both of their faces are still a little bit messed up. They're both stretching, but I think Dall-E 2's is a little bit more coherent. And for the final, we get another picture of this ginger cat. And this is actually my favorite one of these Dall-E 2 generations, although he looks like he's been blinded as a cat. So yeah, again, I have to give this one to Dall-E 2, but again, I think these first three images that we have been looking at, or these first three prompts, have sort of been in the favor of Dall-E 2 at least. So, you know, you can see this isn't a perfect test. There's a little bit of bias here for sure in these first three images towards Dall-E 2, but I do like these Dall-E 2 generations a little bit more. And by the way, none of these prompts that I've come up with are super easy. Most of them are pretty difficult, so they're gonna try to push pretty much any text-to-image generator towards their limitations. So with this next prompt, Dall-E 2 actually completely falls on its face. Now this prompt was movie still, Walter White from Breaking Bad in a lab coat holding a beaker of green liquid. Now, like we talked about earlier, Dall-E 2 has no capabilities really to create famous people or famous actors or anything like that. So a prompt like this, of course, is going to be very difficult. You know, Walter White's a fictional character, so we're allowed to put it. We're not going to get flagged for putting it into Dall-E 2, but you know, every image of Walter White has really been stripped out of the dataset, so it really doesn't know what Walter White looks like. I mean, he knows he's a scientist. Apparently, he thinks he looks a lot like Trevor from Grand Theft Auto 5 here, but of course, with Stable Diffusion, this is fully allowed, so yeah, we got Walter White for sure. I mean, pretty much all of these generations look just like Walter White here with Stable Diffusion. And for the rest of the prompt, actually, he's definitely wearing a lab coat with the green liquid, but we also see very, very good coherency here with Dall-E 2 as well. I mean, it's definitely a scientist guy in a white lab coat holding up this green liquid, but it's definitely not Walter White. I mean, it looks a little bit like him. We've got the glasses on. We've got, you know, some sort of balding going on, and we definitely got, like, the mustache and beard, but we don't have the complete baldness or, like, the wrinkles on the face. Walter White's a very distinct looking character, and I think that's why I chose him for this test. But yeah, it's just no competition really here. All of these look a lot like Walter White here in Stable Diffusion, and in Dall-E 2, we just don't see this going on at all. It's just some science-looking man. Like, a few aspects of him are right. It's like a off-brand Walter White. With Stable Diffusion here, we've got full Walter White in all of these. It looks quite a bit like him. So yeah, this is definitely going to be a complete win for Stable Diffusion. Of course, this prompt is more biased towards Stable Diffusion's abilities, but if you like to generate famous characters or famous people, then Stable Diffusion is going to win this out for you. No contest. And I know that's actually a huge part of the image generation scene for now, so yeah, in comparison to Dall-E 2, you know, it's a very coherent image, it gets a lot of the prompts right, but that ain't Walter White at the end of the day. So this next prompt was a close-up studio photograph of a tsunami in a jar, with the water swirling around menacingly, dramatic lighting, edited in Photoshop. So as we can see, both images actually match the prompt, I think, fairly well. In my opinion, for this first generation here, with Stable Diffusion, the water is splashing around a little bit better. We've got a little bit more, I think, of that studio lighting aspect and that Photoshop-y vibe from it. But here with Dall-E 2, this is still a very good image. We definitely have, I think, more of a clear jar at least. And I mean, it's definitely shot in studio lighting, I think. The water is definitely swirling around, but it doesn't look as much like a tsunami as the Stable Diffusion image. So for this first image, at least, I'm going to give this one to Stable Diffusion. I like this one a little bit better. In the second one, however, we don't see any jar at all with Stable Diffusion. We just see some water splashing around. So, you know, we're missing some pieces of the prompt here for this. While it is a cool image and very coherent image, we're missing some aspects, right? So with Dall-E 2, actually, this isn't a really great generation of this prompt either. We've got the jar at least, and definitely some swirling liquids and stuff, but why is it orange? tsunamis really aren't orange from what I know. So yeah, something's going on. Maybe that Photoshop is messing with the prompt a little bit. Anyways, I don't think either of these are really great, but maybe Dall-E 2 edges this second image out a little bit. Again, we're seeing the same issue in the second image here with Stable Diffusion. It's just some splashing going on. We don't see the jar at all. I guess it looks a little bit like a tsunami, and it looks like it could be in a jar. It's definitely like this close-up image, but you know, we're missing some pieces of the prompt here, and with Dall-E 2, it's not a whole lot better, but at least we have the full jar, and it just looks like something sort of dissolving. So the tsunami's not really here either. They're both missing aspects from the prompt, but I guess I'd still have to maybe give it to Dall-E 2. Both of these are actually pretty poor representations of the prompt, I think, at least. So this one, I guess, is a tie. Coming up to the last image for each of these, Dall-E 2 just has a jar and some swirling liquid, so, you know, it's about as good as the last one. Not really following the prompt as closely as we would like, but actually with Stable Diffusion, I'm kind of liking this. This is definitely a splashing sort of tsunami whilst it's not in the jar. The jar is still there, at least, on the side. And, you know, it's a pretty good splashing one, so I like that it actually was able to include the tsunami in there. So yeah, I think Stable Diffusion has the better image, at least out of this one. And honestly, out of all of these images, I definitely like this one the best. Well, this one's also my second favorite. I think Stable Diffusion beats out Dall-E 2 in this specific prompt test. The tsunami in the jar, I like Stable Diffusion's just a little bit more. So our next prompt here sort of tries to allow for a little bit more creative zest thrown into the prompt. Basically, this prompt is a close-up of a lemon made entirely out of glittering stardust. Every speck of glitter is sharply in focus, and the stardust appears to be moving and swirling around. The background is a deep black. So, for this first image, I think Dall-E 2 actually followed the prompt a little bit better in comparison to Stable Diffusion. I mean, both of these are actually pretty close to the prompt. We've got some speckles of stardust floating around. I mean, the lemon really isn't made out of stardust here with Stable Diffusions, to be fair. So yeah, Dall-E 2, I think, you know, it's definitely like a stardusty lemon, and they both have the deep black background, so, you know, they're both doing pretty good, but I think Dall-E 2's is a little bit better. Moving on to the second image for both, the lemon is barely in the picture for Stable Diffusion here, so in my opinion, this is kind of a fail on Stable Diffusion's part, and, you know, this is actually a really nice version of Dall-E 2's here. It's a really nice close-up, sharp focus image, so Dall-E 2 actually did a really good job with this image right here. And moving on to the third one here, I actually really like the creative take here. With Stable Diffusions, the lemon is cut in half, and you can see on the inside of the lemon that it is clearly made out of glittering stardust, and it's sharply in focus. So this is easily my favorite variation out of all of the images for this prompt. And, you know, Dall-E 2 still did a very good job, although all these images do look very, very similar to each other. And the last one here for Dall-E 2 is just like a really close-up. You can see the lemon in all of them, but they're all practically the same. They're all close to the prompt and very good images nonetheless. But this creative take here with Stable Diffusion really puts it over the edge for me. I like this Stable Diffusion image more. And this last one, you can barely see the lemon in here for Stable Diffusion. It's definitely made out of stardust. I also really like this one. I like the variety in Stable Diffusion's images here a little bit more. And honestly, while Dall-E 2 had a more consistent, coherent image, Stable Diffusion is very, very close, and I like the creative aspects and the creative stuff that Stable Diffusion put into this prompt. So for me, this one is going to have to be a tie, although Stable Diffusion didn't really get the prompt perfect on all of these. So moving into our seventh image here, this caption was "Pineapple Pizza Cupcake Food Photography." This is actually quite an easy prompt, I think, in my opinion, for both AIs, and I have to say both of these AIs actually nailed this prompt. I mean, this is more of pineapple on pizza, so Dall-E 2 is actually not really getting the prompt perfectly right for this image, but it is a very appealing looking image. It's nice and creative, and I like it. It's definitely food photography, where we definitely got these pineapple pizza cupcakes here on Stable Diffusion's side. If we move into the other images, Stable Diffusion actually made the same mistake that Dall-E 2 made in the first image here, as you can see, and just made pineapple pizza food photography, although we got the pineapple pizza cupcakes still here in the image. This one, I guess, would technically be considered kind of incorrect. right, not following the prompt perfectly. This one's actually a really nice one from Dall-E 2 as well, and both of them are really, honestly, just nailing this prompt in my opinion. So I think both of these are kind of a tie. We got the pineapple here on the plate with the cupcake. So yeah, I mean, they're just both really, really creative and really good. These are definitely pineapple pizza cupcakes, no doubt about it, on Stable Diffusions. And the final one on here is another sort of pizza. So yeah, I mean, they both did a really good job. And I would have to consider these images pretty equal. They both are making one same mistake here, making just pineapple pizza instead of the pineapple pizza cupcake. But yeah, both of these I think are very good generations for this prompt. So number 8 here coming in, we've got another Walter White prompt. Again, a little bit more biased maybe towards Stable Diffusion for this, because of course Dall-E 2 not allowed to generate Walter White stuff like we talked about earlier. But, you know, I think, obviously, Stable Diffusion nailed this prompt, even though, you know, his hand's a little bit messed up, the eggs are floating in this. Dall-E 2 just doesn't really... It makes, like, clip art for some reason, almost, like, these little... Like, the prompt was too simple for Dall-E 2 that it just made, like, very basic-looking art. It's just some, you know, middle-aged man cooking an egg, really. I mean, it's definitely cool art, I guess, nonetheless, but, you know, this is not Walter White cooking an egg. This one tried to make a Walter White meme or something, and as you can see, it's the text just really is not that great with Stable Diffusion, just like Dall-E 2. Both of these text-to-image AIs don't really put text on your image very well as of yet, but you know, that's nonetheless Walter White, so this is just unequivocally more close to the prompt no matter what. And then this is probably my favorite one. It looks like he's on a sitcom or something from the 90s. That is Walter White cooking an egg or cooking some sort of a meal, and that's definitely his face. I mean, obviously this is going to go to Stable Diffusion because it is definitely more close to Walter White cooking an egg, and this is probably the most accurate one. We got 2 jumbo ostrich eggs here, and Walter White is cooking them up, and this is just some middle-aged Italian guy doing some cooking with an egg. So, moving into our final comparison here, this is a low-angle photo of a Shih Tzu on a pirate ship. I have got to say, this is probably the most surprising out of all of these. I think Stable Diffusion actually won this one. Here in our first comparison, we've definitely got this low angle, very creative photo, I have to say. I really like the different colors used of a Shih Tzu on a pirate ship. And over here on Dall-E 2's side, we definitely have the same thing. It's a low angle photo. It's definitely a Shih Tzu dog. That's the breed, a Shih Tzu. He is on a pirate ship, but for some reason, the upscaling got, like, messed up with this photo, and, like, the whole pirate ship is fuzzy, like a Shih Tzu. It's also a very blurry photo of the Shih Tzu. I think this one's more clear, even though this is technically in a lower resolution than this image. I think the upscaling just did not do a very good job, and it's kind of a gross-looking image almost. So I think for this first one, Stable Diffusion definitely has the better image. This one's actually, again, a very creative variation here from Stable Diffusion. It's actually like a wide angle image, but it's still low angle. Definitely the Shih Tzu breed on a pirate ship in the middle of the ocean. And here, you know, we've definitely got, again, a low angle photo of a Shih Tzu, but again, it's making everything like really fuzzy and like clay looking almost here in Dall-E 2's image. It's definitely the same breed of the dog, but we've got like this weird artifact here. And yeah, it's just a worse image, I think, in general here for Dall-E 2. Although it's still very coherent and very nice. I think that Stable Diffusion's imagery was a little bit better. Moving on to the next one, we've got yet another very clear, very nice Shih Tzu. He's clearly on a pirate ship. I mean, this one, you could fool me that this was a real photo here from Stable Diffusion. And on the second one, again, we've got something weird going on with the upscaler. Like, it's not a very clear and coherent image. It's like all looking like it's made out of clay or something. Just something weird is going on with Dall-E 2's imagery here. We can clearly tell that's like what it's supposed to be for the image, but it's just not as clear and kind of mush-mashy. And here with our final Stable Diffusion image, again, it's a nice clear image of a rather precarious Shih Tzu on a pirate ship in the middle of the ocean. And yeah, this one, again, you could almost fool me that this was a real image. And this is probably actually somehow the worst image out of all of these from Dall-E 2. This face of the Shih Tzu is very mush-mashed and weird looking. Like, I just don't understand what exactly went wrong here with Dall-E 2. Again, everything looks like it's made out of clay or being painted. The quality just isn't here in comparison to Stable Diffusion. I think all of the Stable Diffusion generations are just of better quality. The face of the dog is better. It's a more realistic looking photo. The pirate ship, the creativity is better. So yeah, I think this is definitely going to be a win for Stable Diffusion for this imagery, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. This one was definitely the most surprising for me. And yeah, that's all we have for comparisons today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me turn the face cam back on. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys maybe learned something, and let me know what you think in the comments. Would you use Stable Diffusion over Dall-E 2? Which one do you think really was better at the end of the day? They're almost head-to-head for me in terms of quality. It really depends on the prompt. But if you want to generate obviously like famous people, or you want less restrictions, you're going to have to go with Stable Diffusion no matter what. And there is definitely some stuff that Dall-E 2 can do that Stable Diffusion just can't do as well. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.